Good evening, everyone. I apologize for our late start, but I think we're ready to go now. So let me welcome all who are here in person and those who are joining us electronically by the miracle of technology to what is a most auspicious moment in the growth of the Oates Institute. Um, my name is Dr. Cliff Kuhn, and I am known in some quarters as the Laugh Doctor. More about that later. But I simply am glad to see you. It's an honor to be the MC an event that celebrates the past and anticipates with enthusiasm the future of the growth of Oates Institute. So I'd like to start with a joke. What would you expect from the Laugh Doctor? And this joke is about a grandfather who takes his granddaughter to the beach. And it's a lovely day. The sun is shining, the surf is clear, and the light is sparkling on the waves. And so they're standing on the beach just breathing in the salt air and hearing the rhythm of the waves and just glad to be there, when suddenly a huge wave comes out of the surf, washes over both of them, and sweeps the little girl out of the grandfather's hands, carries him off into the sea. The grandfather is beside himself, and he falls down on his knees, and he looks to heaven and says, "Oh God, no, not my granddaughter. Take me instead, anything. She has her whole life ahead of me. I beseech you, please, please do not take her." And as he's praying this prayer, another huge wave comes and deposits the little girl right back beside him, soaking wet, but otherwise unhurt. He looks down and he says, "She had a hat." Yeah, I love that joke. I love that joke. I love it because it illustrates something Wayne Oates taught me, and lots of others have reinforced it. It also points out how we can lightly look at our tendency sometimes to not see the forest for the trees, because the grandfather passed up all of the gratitude he was feeling at that time to look at the one thing he didn't like about the situation. So I bring that up tonight because we're talking about a night when there's going to be a lot of nostalgia and a lot of new information, and for some of us, maybe even unanticipated and hard to understand and hard to embrace information, because when we go from something that's real familiar to something that's brand new, there's always pain or at least frustration and maybe even a little fear. So the lesson that this joke tells me is, when you're facing a challenging situation, it's best to start with searching as hard as you can for something you can wholeheartedly say yes to, no matter how threatening it seems, no matter how intolerable it may seem. And I owe that to Wayne, although I didn't learn it very well while I was able to be with him. It has come on me slower. I'll give you an example of how Wayne would teach it. He, one time, made a wonderful presentation in Grand Rounds when we were together, when he was in the Department of Psychiatry. And after that, he honored me by inviting me back to his office, along with a half dozen graduate students that were in the program for, what do you call it when you, pastoral care. Pastoral care. Yeah, that's a good name for it. Thanks. In the pastoral care program, and had attended a lecture of his out on the campus of the seminary, and it was a wonderful exchange back and forth, debriefing from the information. And one of the students, brilliant fellow, handed up his hands and said, you know, you actually contradicted yourself today. And he said, really? Tell me how. What's that about? Well, he said, and I'm not going to go into the details, he said about 18 months ago he gave a lecture out at the seminary. And when it came to this issue that you addressed today, you said A, B, C. Today you came to the same issue and you said X, Y, Z, which was almost the opposite of what you said. Wayne looked at him for a minute, and then he looked up in the air, and then a smile came on his face, and gently, full of joy, his face turned to him and said, I think you're right. I must be growing. Beautiful. He didn't confront, he didn't debate, he just found something to say yes in that challenge. And I'm going to do that tonight. There's a lot I don't know about the future. None of us know completely about the future. So some things are going to sound strange to me. Some things are going to sound threatening to me, disrespectful, or whatever. But that's new growth. And I'm going to try to find something to say yes to. And it works. Because if you get better at saying yes to anything, no matter how threatening it might be, uncomfortable it might be, you find yourself saying no less often. And in times, you don't even have to ever say no, as long as you follow the things you can embrace and move with. And so that's what I advocate tonight. We're going to learn a lot about poignancy and maybe even a little grief about the past history of this still relatively young institute. 35 years is not a lot of time. And so maybe we're in our adolescence or even our early adulthood. 35 years ago, a group of us who had the wonderful experience of working with Wayne Oates started this institute to honor him and to expand and practice and search out all the meanings of what he had taught us and represented for us. And it did it with his blessing and allowed us to put his name to it. And people are in the room here who were at the inception of that, and we nurtured it, we protected it, we planted it in a local garden, a small, and we fed it, and we gave it our best love and support, like you would raise an infant, and it has gone out of its infancy into a greater maturity, and the growth has been abundant. I mean, it started as a seed. It's now, to use an analogy, at least a young sapling. But there's no question about the fact that it has outgrown the small garden we planted it in. And as you wouldn't keep an infant in a crib for the rest of its life, or as you wouldn't put new wine in old wineskins, it is time for a transplantation into a larger, more abundant, more nutritious, more far-reaching garden. And that's the new. And we're going to hear both sides of that. And I think there will be something here for each of us who are here present and online to say yes to. And when you find that, I encourage you to open your heart to it and give whatever treasure you can give, because as an old vaudeville performer once said, named, I'll think of his name in a minute, Al Jolson. Some of you may be too young to remember him, but usually in his act, usually after a big ovation from one of the songs he'd sing, he'd stop and he'd say, "Hold on to your hats. You ain't seen nothing yet," which goes back to the hat in the joke. So everything ties together. You know, Oates Institute has outgrown its hat. So if you see the hat missing, it's because we need a new hat and a new garden. Now, to get things started, I want to bring up someone who's been a mentor and a friend and a great teacher. He's been a teacher and a therapist, and his talent as a leader is well known. He's been a very successful soccer coach, still volunteers his time to help out soccer coaches, and he's been a good friend. And for the last 6 years, he has been our leader, our executive director, and he has fashioned this moment of transplanting. And he's going to talk to you about the preciousness of the roots that already are, and how we're going to treat them with dignity and care and love as we transplant them into a garden where they can grow deeper, wider, and where the abundance of the fruit that is already internationally sought will only grow exponentially. And that's a good thing, because I don't think there's ever been a time when the world is more hungry and needing of an inclusive and expansing and effective, with all the psychosocial, biological, spiritual components blending together, a new understanding of healing. So let me introduce you to a man who has no trouble saying yes, especially if there's hard work involved. Rick Underwood, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks, Cliff. Let me add my good evening and my apologies for our delay in getting started. We had refreshments upstairs, so graciously provided by the staff here, and some of us got hung up there eating, and so we didn't want to get started without most of us down here. So again, I apologize. I know everybody's time is valuable. We're glad you're here, and on behalf of our present board, and some of them are here, stand up there, present board members. We got Ann Vino and Russell Hoffman and Lane Aiken and Jean Knetz. And I think the rest of our board members are watching virtually because of limitations in health and other reasons for not being here. But also on behalf of the thousands of members, and I literally mean thousands of members for 3 decades that have benefited from the Oates Institute's mission of providing education online. On behalf of all of those folks, we greet you and welcome you here, whether you be online or here present. It's been my privilege for the last, I guess, 7 years now to serve as the executive director. And I took over, I was on the board and took over after the death of Chris Hammond, who we owe a debt of gratitude for creating the web site that we had at the time. Vicki Holland was the original executive director. We're going to hear from her in a few minutes from out in San Diego, or wherever she is, San Antonio. So they launched this adventure many years ago, and we also want to thank offer our deepest gratitude to this board, and I've introduced some of them, the others that aren't here. Rabbi Galia Rooks, Scott Earwood, Kenyon Meyer, or also have served, and Alyssa Merriweather and Sharon Perkins have been faithful through the years in helping us rebuild something that hackers took down after Chris's death. We hope you enjoy the evening, and which will include Peter Bucher and Harry Pickens music as we move forward. And we'll have recorded testimonies from some folks that I think you'll enjoy hearing from that are brief and give you an opportunity, as well as those that are watching, to say a word of testimony, to use a Baptist word, about the Oates Institute and its work through the years, as well as about Wayne Oates. So at this time, I want to ask Elaine Achting to come forward. Elaine is the only board member that has been here since the beginning. Many of you know her. She has been a stellar supporter of the folks that have been in the seminary through the years and others, and has been faithful to this board. And tonight we want to honor her as and give her the Lifetime Contribution Award. Lifetime Contribution Award.
That's pretty heavy.
And she has shared her time, treasure, and talent with us for all of these years, and we're so grateful. So we're going to let her start out with sharing a few words.
One of my most vivid memories of Dr. Oates are those cold winter mornings when I used to pick him up to go to board meetings. We had some physicians on our board then, and they had to make early calls, and so our board meetings, believe it or not, were at 7 a.m. And it's very dark and very cold in the wintertime, if you remember. And I can see Pauline now. I would pull the car up in their garage entrance as far as I could get it, and she would come out. He would be up in an overcoat. She would be tying a wool scarf around his neck and buttoning that top button. And those mornings that we rode to the meeting, the board meeting, I just wish I had kept notes. I'm sure we must have plumbed the depths of some deeply philosophical problem, but I cannot remember a single conversation. I confess that with much shame, because I should have been writing down every word he said. But anyway, that's a very vivid and very beautiful memory of both him and Pauline. Since I'm unofficially, or maybe even officially, poet laureate of this Oates Institute, I will close with more or less poems, shall we say, and I entitled it Change. As sure as the earth turns and our days are numbered, change will happen. Sometimes we welcome it, other times we abhor it and try to resist it, but it comes anyway. Now our beloved institute has come to such a pass, but this change is welcome. The lessons that Wayne Oates learned and taught in dealing with countless problems facing mankind will be made more accessible than neither he nor we ever dreamed. With hearts full of hope and gratitude, we pass the torch on to those who will be making use of Dr. Oates' wisdom to help in the healing process for years to come. Thank you.
I picked Elaine up in my pickup truck today. I got one a few months ago, first truck I've ever had. And I said, I bet you've never had a date pick you up in a pickup truck. And she's, first time. Thanks again, Elaine. Now we have a treat. One of our past Oates Award recipients, Harry Pickens. Some of you, most of you have heard Harry or heard of him, and he has done. He's been like a lot of the rest of us, recovering from an illness, but he recorded some music for us, for your pleasure and entertainment tonight. So at this time, we're going to play Harry Pickens' work. He's an internationally known jazz pianist, deeply rooted in his own spirituality, and has been active for years in promoting that deep sense of spirituality through his music. So we're grateful for Harry to join us in this way tonight.
Hi, this is Harry Pickens. Greetings to all of my dear friends at Oates Institute. The Oates Institute has made such a difference for so long. It's my honor to share a little bit of music that hopefully commemorates the power of what has been created and also speaks a little bit to our human condition. I have 3 songs for you. The first is a very familiar hymn, and it's called Blessed Assurance, and it speaks about the possibilities that occur when we remember that at the core of our being, we are cared for and loved deeply. The second is a song called Fragile by Sting. And this speaks to the fragility of the human condition. We never know when the last breath will come, our last chance to say, I love you. And so we have to carpe diem, seize the day, and bring the best of ourselves to every moment. And the last song is an affirmation of the beauty and delight and miracle and wonder of life, called It's a Wonderful World. I hope you enjoy all of these, and may you have a wonderful, wonderful celebration tonight. Have a wonderful celebration. Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Thank you, Harry. Uh-oh, we're not on. Are we on? Here? Hello, hello, hello. Thank you, Harry. Wow. Have you found anything to say yes to yet? Good. Wow. Isn't it beautiful when a musician collaborates with an instrument to make it sing? Ah, what a wonderful world that makes it. Wow. Okay. Through the magic of technology that just gave us Harry, we have some people who have been very close to the Oates Institute over its first 35 years that just could not be here tonight. And they have pre-recorded their words and reminiscences and whatever they have to say.
Greeting.
And wait, whoa, not yet. In order, it will be Vicki Holland, Leslie Holland, Dr. Gail Henson, Dr. David Stencil, and Dr. Mark Jensen. Okay.
Greeting, friends and fellow Oates sojourners. I'm sorry I can't be with you on this special night. I'll be recovering from knee replacement surgery. But I want you to know that my 15 years as director of the Oates Institute, beginning in 1996, was such a tremendous blessing for me personally. And I have two precious memories that I out of many, of course, that I'd like to share with you. You know, we had our first online conference in 1998, and it was a very exciting time and felt like a big risk for us as staff and as board members, but we were very excited. It was an experiment, and I remember our first board meeting immediately following that online conference as we evaluated the experience and needed to make a decision. You know, would our constituents, would our colleagues even continue to get online for continuing education, or did we need to let go of that new and exciting idea? As you can imagine, the discussion was very lively. We were a group of professional caregivers, and all our experience and our training had taught us to connect with others in person. We needed to see each other. We needed to see the body language and read our expressions and others' expressions and offer hugs and words of encouragement. But after much discussion, the issue came down to the question, would our constituents get online with us for the future? Dr. Wayne Oates, the oldest person in the room around the table, he had listened, and finally he spoke up. He said, I think we're asking the wrong question. I think we need to be asking, how can we help them get there? His comment was so representative of the Wayne Oates I knew, and I know you knew. Always looking ahead with an ear to the ground to know what was coming next or what was just below the surface of our culture. I was so amazed at his creativity and his proactive response. As far as I know, Wayne Oates' manuscript, Caring for Couples Who Live Together, has still not been published, and he wrote it many years ago, and don't we know people that could use it? My second memory dates back to my first or second year with the Institute. The best work benefit anyone could have, or I could have, was my time and relationship with Wayne Oates. I clearly remember him telling me one day, Vicki, my ego is not caught up in this institute. And if down the road it cannot continue, it'll be okay. I knew then he was taking care of me, seeking to take some pressure off, and that he really would want to take care of all of us who'd worked so hard and given much to the Oates Institute. The reality is, Wayne Oates' legacy and his influence lives on far beyond the Oates Institute. The Institute has had a tough mission when it comes to fundraising, and I admit there are times that I felt some envy around those nonprofits who were taking care of some of the more basic needs in Maslow's hierarchy. However, so many of you have understood the importance of this interdisciplinary, interfaith work to support the whole person, and I'm deeply grateful for what we have shared together and what you've given. Thank you.
Wayne Oates was a servant leader who became that way through his struggle to be free in the freedom of God's love. And through that, he has touched people around the world. 30 years ago, I was on sabbatical in Kenya, and my family and I were walking among the foothills of Mount Kenya. I met a man and had a long conversation with him who was a psychiatrist in Nairobi who had studied in London. He asked me if I knew a man in the States by the name of Wayne Oates. He read his writings and wanted to spend time with him personally, maybe on a sabbatical. I said I did. 2 years later, I would become Wayne's pastor. And in that, he gave Vicki and me a privilege to become his pastor, and Pauline extended the same grace to us. And with them, then the privilege to be a part of Charles and Bill's life as well. On Friday afternoons, Wayne and I would typically spend about 30 minutes together just in conversation. During those first visits, I asked Wayne, I'm being asked in the church what I should be called. Dr. Holland seemed a little too formal, Reverend Holland the same way, Brother Les was a bit too country. And so he said, well, let's just call you Pastor Les. That's before the term has become so popular as it is now in America. Once again, he gives us an aid to know our identity. Of course, that was his first book, The Christian Pastor. His writings continue to shape us and future generations of readers. But as we embody the wisdom that he gives us, we know that we can be a source of God's wisdom at work in the world, even as we acknowledge our own flaws, as Wayne did to the man who said, well, I'm an addict too. I'm a workaholic. And thus that phrase caught fire to help many people understand what they were exhausted from. He gave us language to understand our human experience. My favorite book of his is Christ the Center, for he was centered in a way that helps to center each of us. And for me, I wish you God's blessings and gratitude for the work that you did with the Oates Institute. And now as the reservoir of the Institute is being passed on, blessings upon it, but that each of us may be faithful and true to live in the freedom of what God provides for us. That's so well illustrated by the man of Wayne E. Oates.
Hello, my name is Gail Henson. I'm a professor emeritus of communication at Bellarmine University, a small Catholic university in Louisville, Kentucky. A number of years ago, one of my mentors at Bellarmine, Dr. Maggie Miller, a professor of psychology, introduced me to the Oates Center. Of course, growing up in Louisville, I had known of Wayne Oates and his legacy of pastoral care. But her invitation to join the board of the Oates Institute and become a teaching faculty member online introduced a whole new world to me. To be joined through the power of the internet and Zoom with clergy, chaplains, social workers and nurses, and laypersons like myself, all over the country and frankly all over the world, opened the magic of the internet to connections and relationships. Chris Harmon was the director at the time, and he would let me teach classes in spirituality and literature, grief, and other courses that really fit the needs of what his audience wanted. I'm so grateful to Chris for the opportunities he gave me. I'm so grateful for Rick Underwood for keeping up the legacy of Dr. Oates and keeping the Institute. And I'm so grateful to the University of Louisville for acquiring the volumes of research and the documents from Dr. Oates. His legacy will continue long. So thanks be to God for Dr. Oates' legacy, and thank you to Rick Underwood and to Chris for what they did to keep his legacy viable for so many people. So thank you so much, and U of L, thank you for taking this valuable resource.
I'm Dave Stansel, recording from the mountains of Southwest Virginia, and it is a privilege to be able to be a part of this celebration of Wayne's life and legacy. I was introduced to Wayne Oates first in the 1970s through his book, The Christian Pastor, which was a required reading textbook for our one required pastoral care course at Southwestern. And as I read that book, I was impressed by this author's biblical grounding, by his pastoral wisdom, his compassion, his clinical skill. And as I read the book, I said to myself, I hope I can become that sort of a pastor. During most of the years since, I have been a pastor of local churches, or a staff member in local churches, or a counselor in local churches, and I have done my best to become that sort of person. Whether I did or not, I don't know. As years passed, we moved to Louisville and did the PhD in the Oates department. And during those years, we were in Louisville 16 years, and our family and Wayne's family both worshiped at St. Matthew's Baptist Church, and so we saw each other quite often. I was in his home a number of times. I was the associate pastor of the church for 7 years, and during that time, he was a friend and a counselor and an encourager for me in so many ways. There came the opportunity during part of that time to be on the staff or the faculty at Southern Seminary, rattling around in the enormous hole that Andy Lester left on the faculty. And so thus I was a part of what I suppose was the last faculty with Denise Massey and Lee Conver before the Oates department was no more. Wayne, over the years, was very kind to recommend me for many jobs I was not qualified for, but it was an evidence of his blessing, and for that I was grateful. It was an October morning some years ago. We were camping, and my family and I, in Moab, Utah. There was ice in the tent. It was cold, and the pastor's secretary, Jan Watts, called and told me that Wayne had crossed over from labor to life. So we packed up and came home. And Wayne, when the time comes for me to cross over, I look forward to having more conversations. And until then, I'll keep trying to be the kind of Christian pastor that you wrote about.
Hi, I'm Mark Jensen, and I'm on the faculty at Wake Forest University School of Divinity and am a certified educator in the CPE faculty at Atrium Wake Forest Baptist Health here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. My professional journey owes a deep debt of gratitude to Wayne Oates. I was a religion major at Houston Baptist University in the 1970s, and we used his brand new book on the psychology of religion. I followed that thread to Southern Seminary in 1978, where I was fortunate to study with Edward Thornton, Andy Lester, and Wade Rowett. When I came back to Southern for doctoral studies, I was fortunate to serve as a teaching fellow with Wayne for a year. Back to my current professional location, as I'm sure you know, Wayne was an alumnus of Wake Forest and left many of his personal and professional papers in 1994 to the Z. Smith Reynolds Library. They are housed there in special collections, and a detailed inventory of them is available through the library website. Scholars can submit requests for material through that same website. I remember talking with Wayne as he was making that decision. He said he wasn't going to give the library all of his correspondence and notes because, quote, he didn't want to give his enemies any ammunition. Two more notes that describe Wayne's institutional legacies. In 1947, Wayne came to Winston-Salem and joined his colleague Richard K. Young. Together, they offered the first unit of clinical training at North Carolina Baptist Hospital. This fall, we celebrate the 75th anniversary and the continuous offering of that training. I've been fortunate to be here for the last 30 years. The Wayne Oates Institute rightly perceived and nurtured Wayne's passion for the person-centered care of souls, honoring the best wisdom of faith traditions and interdisciplinary human sciences. That legacy lives on in people and places too numerous to count, and we're grateful for the way you've nurtured it for all these years.
Thanks to those contributors. Elaine mentioned accessibility, increased accessibility, and as you just heard, Wayne was an alumnus of Wake Forest, and I can report to you that talks are beyond the talking stage, and already things are moving towards a very close collaboration with the University Library at Wake Forest, who has other resources that will build and expand the resources that we offer, and we will be working collaboratively with them. So that's another expansion of the accessibility. Now, through the magic of technology, I have one more treat for you. Not the last one you'll see tonight, but a musical treat, another musical treat. Peter Brucker practices as an orthopedic surgeon in our community, but of late, he has embraced his spirituality through meditation and music, and he's recorded something special for this event. So I give you by technology, Peter Brucker.
Room grows dark, air falls still. Daylight crawls from the windowsill, hanging. Room grows in dark. A pregnant sigh, air falls still. Only light, daylight crawls, light that's in your eyes from the windowsill. Mystery remains in a pregnant sigh. Beside me on only light, light that's in your eyes. I long mystery remains. Afraid of all I've done, beside me on what I've changed. Nothing, time drags on for me to do. I long to rest. Should you love another? Afraid of all I've done, as I've loved you. Afraid of what I miss. Nothing. Mystery remains for me to do. What's hiding beyond? Should you love another? Why, oh, why can't I believe mystery remains in a freedom I cannot see? What's hiding beyond me? Why, oh, why oh, do I cling? Can't I believe to these walls closing in a freedom I cannot see? Why do I cling to these Hold walls? My hand closing in on me and let me go. Why let me run through fields of gold, fields I've sold my hand. Love have grown, let me go. Where endless horizon, let me run. Call me home, fields of gold, Mystery remains. Love have grown. tired of me on these chains. Why, oh, why can't I believe the story remains in a freedom I cannot see? Tired of me on these chains. Why, oh, why do I bleed? Can't I believe to these walls in a freedom closing in on me? I cannot say, oh, release me. Why, oh, why? So I can fly. Lord, release me to these walls so I can fly. Oh, release me. Oh, release me. So I can fly. So I can fly. Lord, release me. Words grow. So I can fly. Oh, release me. Could this sinner, so I can fly, be a saint. Your whisper, mystery, words grow faint. Could this sinner's chains ever be a saint? Release me. Mystery remains.
Beautiful. Thank you, Peter. Now, there's an opportunity for us here and those of you watching over the internet to share some of what they might want to say about these precious roots we're talking about that are going to be transplanted in a more ample garden. And I'll go first, because I said I'd say a little more about the Laugh Doctor. You may not know this, but Wayne Oates and his partner in crime, Henley Barnett, were the biggest influence that encouraged me to pursue my inquiry into the potential healing of humor that has been one of the greatest experiences of my life. And I have Wayne to thank for that. And I'm not surprised, because almost all the interactions I had with Wayne was filled with laughter. And laughter, Wayne laughed as passionately as he did anything else. And sometimes it was a raucous laughter. It wasn't a gentle laugh. He was a gentle man, but he at times had the capacity not to be a gentle man. And he expressed that in his humor too. And I'll never forget my first meeting with him, and that's what I want to speak to. I was being recruited to the university to head up the consultation liaison program, the consultation service in the Department of Psychiatry. And the first person on the agenda of my first day of interviews was Wayne Oates, who had just recently joined the department. I got to his office, he greeted me, and immediately I was drawn to him because he found something to say yes to. He said, "I understand you and I have a lot in common." And I said, "What? What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, if you get this job, and I hope you do, both of us will spend most of our time playing away games rather than home games. We'll always be on somebody else's turf. And you'll be in surgery, not psychiatry, most of your time. I'll be here in the medical school most of my time instead of at the seminary. And I hope you will join me in that." And that was amazing to me. But the next morning, when I was on my way to the second day of interviews, I encountered Wayne. He was walking across the street from Norton's to the University Hospital, and he's waiting for the crosswalk crosswalk to turn green, and he was carrying an electric typewriter. And I walked up to him, and he greeted me, and I said, "Thank you for yesterday. You got things off to such a start. I'm so glad to have met you." And he said, "Likewise." And we stood there for a moment, and I said, "You know, Wayne, I have an extra pen, and if you would accept it, you might not have to carry that typewriter with you everywhere you go." Well, it wasn't a very funny joke, but he almost dropped the typewriter laughing at it. He laughed so raucously. And that was Wayne. He never did anything halfway. And I'd like to invite first the people who are here who might want to say something about their thoughts or feelings about the history of Wayne and the Institute. And we will also invite after that, those who are online with us to do the same. But anyone here would like to come to the podium and share with us about Wayne? Oh boy. You know, his son is here tonight, so I welcome you. I welcome you, Charlie. And I must say, Wayne's idea of pushing me into the laugh doctor mode came when he attended his son Charlie's graduation in 1980 at the medical school. And who was it that was, Norman Cousins was the speaker. And Wayne said, "Have you read Norman Cousins' book?" And I hadn't. And he said, "Get to it." And he just kept nudging me, as you know he could do, until I got involved in humor and healing. Come on up and share something with us, Charlie. It's good to see you.
Evening to you all. I am the other Dr. Oates, and I'm pleased to be the Oates the Lesser in comparison. I started into the Wayne Oates University when it was only a mentorship. That was in May 11th, 1953. I'm still enrolled in that university. I'm 69. It started as I was a little boy, say 5 to 8. He'd take me on rounds with him. This would be at psychiatry out at Central State. And I remembered wandering through there with him, and he would stop and he would graciously talk to one of the patients, and they would connect with him. And he would connect with them. There was a grace that he would be with them. He knew them. And he brought that to him, brought that to them, and he brought that to me as a way of interacting. Time went on. Christmas Eve at Central State, in their chapel was an experience. There was a bunch of people who were really interested in the birth of Christ. Unfortunately, it was them by their opinion. But I did see that the component of it was that here's people that are in need. And Dad would say, "You know, God made us all. God don't make junk. You're not junk. And you deserve to be treated as an equal and with kindness." And he repeated that to me over the years. So by the 8th grade, I decided, you know, he's doing all sorts of psychology. I like that. I want to go into psychology. So as the years went on, being in then a late adolescent, you know, boys want to beat heads with their fathers. And about age 18, I said, you know, there's an awful lot of people who come to see this man, my father, to ask him questions as to what they should do with their life. Well, why don't I just shut up and listen to him? And hence he became yet more my teacher. time went on, and I was in college, and I decided to be in psychology. That eventuated into, I said, no, I need a medical degree, and I'm going into psychiatry. And then I started meeting people like Cliff Coons and a whole host of other docs that he knew. Now, he had brought in a whole new faculty inside the Wayne Oates University that I was in. There'd always been people like Andy Lester and Henley Barnett and Penrose Saint-Amand, all sorts of people that I grew up with who were my ersatz family. And what a great thing to have a family that's filled with a bunch of doctors who've got, knowledge of life, instead of drunks that showed up at Christmas and fell over on the Christmas tree. So all that now was the form of education I'd gotten. And so I said, no, I can't be a psychiatrist. Neurochemistry is the answer here. So I went into neurology, and I'm still a neurologist. His education went on for me, and he kept on showing me other ways and would muster in all sorts of folks. In '73, I became a psychiatric aide. In '75, the year before, summer before I went to medical school, I was in clinical pastoral education. I'm a 23-year-old wet behind the ears who's now the chaplain at General Hospital in the emergency room. Dad used to say, son, we're down here lifting the hood on humanity and seeing what we could do to help. And oh boy, what a greening. And on he would continue to stick his head through the door, either by direct hand or more often through somebody who would be a teacher to me. I finally got out of medical school and residency, and Dad was still there, and I was learning different lessons. The more I got in education, the more I could understand them. Well, this has been my journey with him that is still going on today. I can still hear his voice as I tell people the aphorisms that he told me. I started reading his Struggle to Be Free again, and I stop after about a paragraph and a half, and it fits into the full world of what he knew and who he was. And I just have to stop, and I chew on it for the day. So I continue to have him as my professor, and I continue to feel him as he is still here. As a person passes, your energy does not diminish. Energy is neither created nor writted, not to use the word, and so when we all die, there's the energy that comes out of us, and it just diffuses. So some of his molecules of energy are floating with us because we carry it. That's the energy you still feel as you think about him. Now, finally, one of the most important things that he taught me in taking care of patients is you have to see them in through their eyes, in through their heart, and let them see you through your eyes and through your heart. He said, son, you have to look them hard in the left eye. And I said, why the left eye? He says, we got to look at one of them, but it is a connection that you have. And so with the patient and with other people through your entire life, you need to look at them and see them, and for them to know they have been seen. And that's a healing thing of its own. The other thing that he gave me was this cane, his cane. And the reason I have it tonight is the other thing he gave me is congenital spinal stenosis. I've just had cervical surgery and a left L3-4 surgery in the last 8 months. It's all getting better. So finally, I've got this cane, which supports me even to this day. I've only picked it up in the last 3 months after having the last surgery. But that too has supported me and has me feeling the handle that he had. So the final thing that I will say for him is that you all know of how much that he hurt, how much pain that he had, how much through his life that he had all of these symptoms that just beleaguered him. The one thing that he said is you got to take it and keep going. So all of us here through this institute have learned amongst each other and learned amongst within themselves how to take it and keep going. You got to do it. You don't have a choice. The rest is losing. So I'm here and I'm going to do it.
Anyone else? And I'll bring the mic to you so that we can get as many people as need to speak. Anyone else? Just raise your hand. Okay. Rick, would you come up and help me with the, you said you knew how to direct them. Anyone online, raise your hand if you want to put your image online. If you want to say something, this is a time we invite you to join us with that. Anyone? Raise your hand. Yes. Please introduce. Have you turned your mic on? He reminds me of
Can you
me.
hear me now?
There we go. We hear you.
Oh, good. Thank you. My name is Charles Darwin. And Wayne Oates became a surrogate father and mother for me, Pauline. I met my precious wife in his precious class. I believe that was 152, it was called. It's Psychology of Religion, 152, my wife standing at my side. He brought about a safe place for me to learn more about myself, about my God, and about his precious care. We were invited to the house to visit with he and Pauline and learn of their marriage. They were so clear in talking about marriage and family. My wife has had back problems too, and Wayne was so clear in giving us insight about how to deal with back pain. I have some back pain too now, and I don't know how influential can a man be in your life. There were several people in the department that really still mean a lot to me, though they're gone. I don't know about John Boyle. Swan Hayworth, I know about, and Andy Lester. Well, I was pastoral counselor at Park Cities Baptist Church here in Dallas. Andy was at Bright Divinity School, and I had the opportunity to have him as a consultant supervisor, and his death was a great loss to all of us. I'm sure many in that room too. So when I think about Wayne, I remember his balding head and his gentle way of conversing in the hall by leaning on the wall. And it seemed to relieve some of his pain. And we had such delightful conversations. So I'm thankful to be able to connect with you tonight. I went on from seminary to go to the CTS, Christian Theological Seminary in Indianapolis. And I'm now a disciple of Christ, serving at this point as an elder. I'm 78. And Wayne just became Christ for us. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a young lady who just took her hand down. I see a couple of other hands go up, but I don't recognize you. I'm sorry. You had your hand.
Yes, I was trying to turn the mute myself off. You can hear me now?
We can.
I'm Dr. Denise Massey. I teach pastoral care and counseling at McAfee School of Theology with Mercer University. I was a graduate student in the Psychology of Religion department. I'm the person Dave Stansel mentioned as we were kind of the final Oates tradition faculty. Wayne was a senior research professor the year that I started as an assistant professor. And I remember one day I was going to teach. I had my hands full of books and I had notebooks, and he said, "Now, Dr. Massey, you know that the more books a professor brings to class, the less prepared she is, right?" And there were just lots of times when he was supportive and fun and humorous. And folks have been talking about his back pain recently. And I remember one day his saying to me, "You know, there are 4 Greek words for pain, and I'm experiencing all of them this week." And that's sort of pictured for me his in-depth study of the human condition and his careful look at the human experience and the biblical witness and the biblical language, and careful theological, spiritual, and human. That combination, I think, is really part of his heritage and what many of his students and friends and colleagues have sought to do. And I remember one of the best things I learned in my PhD process. I remember the concept that in grief, that when we get to the best, most mature kind of final stages of grief, we have a deep knowledge of the person's gifts and we seek to incorporate the person's gifts into our own lives in some way. And I see this event as giving us the opportunity, with time and wisdom and maturity, to discern what are the gifts that Wayne exemplify that we can incorporate into our own lives. We've already talked about down to earth, and we've already talked about wisdom and family and community and practicality and an awareness of workaholism, which I think we all need attention to. And the two things related to that I'm working to incorporate into life right now is the right to rest and the struggle to be free. And lastly, I hope that as people in this community, that much of Wayne's writing was about kind of telling stories and sharing experiences. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in the pastoral care community that it'll be good for some of us to write about. And so that's another thing I would suggest for incorporating into our own lives. Thank you.
Thank you. You need to turn it on.
Thanks, Dr. Massey. Let's go up to Rabbi Gaia Ricks.
Okay.
Yeah, we heard you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, I did not have my hand up. I'm Rabbi Galia Rooks. I'm kind of a newcomer to this board, but I studied pastoral care in the late 1980s. And well, I didn't get my doctorate until like 2000. I was ABD at LPTS. I believe I still hold the record for the longest ABD, which at LPTS anyway, they are willing to let you do as long as you pay your continuation fee every semester. They don't mind, you can go on and on. But the Oates Institute has been very near and dear to my heart. It has been a tremendous blessing for me to be able to be part of the board under Rick and well, all the people who have made it what it is. It's very sad for me to refer back to what Cliff was saying, how we need to, there's the difficulty in letting go and watching your child grow up and leave home. As a Jewish mother, that is not my strength. But what I will say is that I know that Wayne was very sensitive to the cycles of the Jewish year. And this Sunday evening begins the new year and the High Holy Day season, which is a time, actually the whole month leading up to it has been baby steps toward introspection and really taking an accounting of the soul and see how we're doing and how we can be better, where we've missed the mark, and what kind of commitments we can make for the coming year to be better people and to work as partners with God in the process of healing the world and all of God's children. So as the old year winds down to an end, it seems a very fitting time from my perspective for us to see the Oates Institute ending this phase and moving into a new year, a new location, a new identity that I pray will continue to bring meaning and healing and inspiration as it has done in the past. And I'm just very grateful to have been able to walk this journey for the few little steps that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. we got started a little late, so we're going to go a few more minutes. And I'd like to, who else would like to speak? Sharon, you want to say a word or two? Okay. Yen,
Yes. Oh,
go ahead.
thank you. My name is Ing Shu Mo. I grew up in a different culture and environment, and but I'm really blessed. That what I should say is I met Dr. Wayne Oates. It's 1994. First, I read his book, Struggle to Be Free. Then suddenly I feel, wow, another part of the world, I never know it. So I never have a personal class with him, but unfortunately I studied with his students such as Dr. Lee Comfort and Dr. Stencil. And also after I finished my seminary study, I went to Atlanta getting my CPE training by his student again, Franklin Duncan. So I learned all the things as well as I still write letters to Dr. Oates, exchanging when I read his book, what I feel, what I thought. And so those things, I'm really blessed because he helped me to understand myself and as well as my spirituality. So that's the reason really inspired me try to help others. I really like to finish my translation, Struggle to Be Free in Chinese. I want to share with people, my friend, and my friend. I want to share with them what they don't know, but I do know. I'm really blessed. So I think his inspiration will continue through all his book because I have many his book. Anytime I go back to read it, I just I read it. I find out more things I can learn more. I just as a person. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it as a chance.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, the hour's growing late here in Louisville, so as precious as these stories are, we have not heard much more about the future, and it would be unbalanced if we didn't. So let me invite the harbingers of what's going to happen in the near future, Vita Vaughn and Dr. Frank Wagon, to come up and share with us some of what's in store.
Good evening. I'm really have enjoyed this opportunity getting to know Dr. Oates through you and to know the man that we will be taking stewardship. I wish to thank everybody who has been part of this tonight, our technology team from the library, the staff, our students who have helped, our archivist. Mary Kay is our archivist. She can wave back here. She will be very much involved with the preservation of this legacy. I'd also like to thank the Oates Institute staff, board, and membership for trusting the Kornhauser Health Sciences Library to assume the stewardship of Dr. Oates' writing, as well as the important scholarship and educational institute resources. In the Quran, 1770, readers are counseled in a modern language translation to, quote, respect and honor all human beings, irrespective of their religion, color, race, sex, language, status, property, birth, profession, job, and so on, end quote. In the Hebrew Bible's book of Micah 6:8, we're directed only to do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. In the Beatitudes of the New Testament, we are taught, blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy, and blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Consistent themes across different faiths and cultures include acknowledging the worth of an individual, respect for the beliefs that may make us different, and the admonition to serve others. I believe these core values that the Oates Institute represent and promote. I also feel these ideals are consistent with the patient values component of the evidence-based practice principles taught here at the Health Sciences campus. Principles that the Kornhauser Health Sciences Library are actively involved in furthering and partner with HSC's administrations, faculty, and students. Dr. Oates once wrote, "Physicians seem to me to have an unspoken code of doing much spiritual leadership in the community without letting the right hand know what their left hand is doing. They perform their leadership inconspicuously and never wear religious connections as a badge or carry it as a banner. A quiet network of collaboration in the care of individuals, families, and institutions exists between physicians and ministers in this community. Please be assured that in addition to accepting the Oates Institute collection, we are pledging to you to continue the quiet network of collaboration by partnering with area chaplains such as Dr. Wogan, where did he go here? Clinicians and community members to develop programming that will, in a format different than what you may be used to, but will nonetheless honor the messaging of patient values and the importance of spiritual care. We invite anyone interested in helping with this work to join the Friends of the Library, and we will work to be worthy of your trust. You've already been to the third word, so I want you there, but I'll turn the time over to Dr. Wogan.
Good evening. Until 1.5 hours ago, when I looked at the program, I did not know that I was supposed to say anything. So this is very much spontaneous. I want to say something about the future, but also a few words about the past, because I came in 1989 to this country for a year of postgraduate studies, and I came to Southern Seminary because Wayne Oates was teaching there. And my first course was his class about pastoral care and human crisis. And in that class, I eyed my wife, and she eyed me. And we had some more classes together, and 1 year of postgraduate studies turned into a marriage, and 2 degrees and 30 years of a career in spiritual care and clinical pastoral education. And Wayne's class and inspiration was the start for that. I was at the first Oates Award dinner, I think. I used to call it the Pastoral Care Oscars. I think Clarence Barton was the first recipient. He was my first CPE supervisor, and then there were many more to come. And today I'm excited, having started there, today I'm excited for Vida Vaughan's enthusiasm about integrating the Oates Institute and that legacy here on the downtown medical campus and with the Kornhauser Library program. It makes a lot of sense for our department to partner, because Wayne worked at the General Hospital. He was chaplaincy on the downtown campus, not just at the General Hospital, also at Norton Hospital back then. So we are excited to see what kind of collaboration can be possible in the future. Our department has a track record for the last 12 years in interprofessional education here with a medical school, and we have put a program on with an NIH grant that is ongoing. And I know that was, even though we didn't call it interprofessional education when Wayne was doing his important work here on the downtown campus, but basically that's what it was. He was a pioneer in interprofessional education, and I look very much forward that we continue that legacy.
I insisted on bringing Rick back because I think that I want to say to you that there are many ways to be involved. And we invite you, if anything has grabbed you and grabbed your heart, to share that effort and share yourself with us. One of my favorite mentors, who was a pretty good comedian at times, was St. Francis. And he was fond of saying, we must preach the gospel every day, and when necessary, use words. And so we treasure your participation with your heart, your prayers, your rolled up sleeves, and your presence in our midst. But when necessary, we also treasure your contribution of money. And that's necessary for this expansion. So, Rick, would you give us a
very, very brief update? Thanks again for the library staff, and Ida and her folks have done a wonderful job. We're so appreciative of being able to pull off this event, even though it's been a little ragged here and there, and for the good refreshments, and most of all for taking over this labor of love for me, and a great rich resource for many people through the years. We're, I don't know whether we have, we've got a little thermometer up there. Our goal for this turnover to finish out our work and to try to set up an endowment at a minimum level, at least, so that can be added to in the future, that might help defray some of the cost of any future programming. We're around $15,000 there, and our goal is $35,000. And we don't have an offering plate to pass, but we would like for you to consider, if you're here, a gift. If you're watching via the through the internet, you can text me at rick@oates.org, email me, rick@oates.org, and make a pledge, and we will communicate how to get that into this fundraising. For those folks that are here, we've been downsizing at the office, and fortunately the library has taken at least 2 truckloads of books so far, and we have a few more, and we still have other things to clean that office out, but we need to get rid of everything we have. So we've brought extra copies of Wayne's, a couple of his books, and coffee mug. Please feel free to take 1 or more of those as you leave tonight. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here with us, and please join us as we try to finish this out and set a new course for perpetuity. Thank you for being here, and good night.